And if they expect me to walk away from Luton with nothing, I'll make very sure there's nothing to walk away from.
Hello and welcome back to the Oak Road Hatter podcast. We are back with a Premier League preview as Luton Town prepare for a return to Craven Cottage, destination where we were dismantled last time. And I do realise that I mentioned at the back end of the last pod that I won't mention it, but it's hard to escape that dreaded day. Of course, didn't really mean too much in the end, but it was just very, very demoralising. But circumstances are completely different this time, and Mr. Optimistic himself is with me in Jamie Castle, and I'm also joined by Stephen Day. Jamie, how are you getting on?
Yeah, I'm good. I was trying to guess how long it would take for you to mention that game, and 24 seconds wasn't on my card. So you've surpassed expectations, Bill. Well done. But no, I'm good. I fresh back from a long weekend following in England. Was in Wrocław to start with in Poland. Came back, did a day's work, then got the train to Glasgow. So I'm running on low energy at the minute. But yeah, hopefully I can bring it for the next half hour or so.
Living the life. And Stephen, how about you?
Yeah, not too bad. Good to be back on. And I'm back with a degree now as well. So expect even less good opinions from me. So, yeah.
Just a brief round of applause for you, Stephen. Well done, mate.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, this is the start of our new structure where we're going to release a pod on Thursday and a pod on the Monday. We're going to preview on the Thursday, and then we're going to round things off and look at the previous fixture on the Monday. So we'll crack on with it. We'll look at Fulham, and I guess we start with how they performed last season. And maybe stretch that even to the 21-22 season where they won promotion from the Championship. They looked very, very good. A lot of people have said Burnley were the best team that they've seen in recent Championship history, but I haven't agreed with that. I think that Fulham side were truly on another level to what I had seen in the Championship. But returning to the Premier League, they finished in the top half, a respectable 10th place finish. Have seen a massive departure in Alexander Mitrovic, but we'll go to that. The fact that they came 10th in the Premier League, being a newly promoted club, that's very impressive, and in a way that sets us up for knowing again that this is going to be a tough game, Mr. Jamie Castle.
Yeah, although we banned that phrase, didn't we, Billy? So, but no, I mean, first season back, fantastic, right? I think every promoted side's ambition is to stay up. So the fact that they did it at a canter, pretty much top half, first season back, was fantastic. So all credit to Marcus Silva and the team there, and they definitely deserved that. They had what was the Championship cheat code in Mitro. He hadn't quite fully cracked the Premier League, but last year he did, and he got a good return when he was playing. I think his record with cards wasn't too great, but when he was playing, his goal scoring record was fantastic. Which go back to 21-22. I completely agree with you. I think they're one of the best sides that I've seen at that level. Okay, well, you've mentioned it already. That 7-0. What you can show is that when they're on fire, they really were fantastic. And okay, it was an off day for us, but you have to give credit to Fulham as to how good they were as well, and they carried that on into last season. So yeah, very, very good side. But okay, I think we'll go on to this season. They're a side that haven't transitioned too much so far. I think they've brought a few players in, but they've sort of stuck with the players from last season by and large, other than Jimenez, who they brought in to replace Mitro. But yeah, I think still they're going to have a lot of threats, and yeah, I'm sure we'll come on to players in detail in a bit.
And Stephen, Jamie's already alluded to the start of the season. They've picked up 4 points from 4 games. They've had a relatively difficult fixture list so far. They beat Everton. They've drawn against Arsenal and they lost against Manchester City and Brentford. It's a good start considering the fixtures, but at the same time, this is perhaps on paper the easiest game we've had so far. So what are your thoughts going into this and considering how Fulham have started to this season?
Yeah, I think with a team that's stayed in the league the previous season, obviously, like we're one of the promoted sides, it's hard to read into the start of their season because they're not going to be running on the promotion. They're not going to be running on anything, and having lost Mitro, and I think it's hard to read into really. But I think all being said, I think 4 points for them is pretty solid. It's a good start. It's a good foundation to carry on with, and yeah, you could say it's one of the easier games in our first few, but at the same time, there are no easy games, and I think what I'm quite worried about, Adama Traore to be specific, going into that. I think obviously we're quite a physical side, but he scares me. His pace and power scares me, and that's thinking about it now. That's the thing that's worrying me going into this game. But at the same time, hopefully we've kind of learned from the 3 lessons that we've had, and we're gonna take that into this game.
Let's hope you don't have the baby oil out. That's one thing to make sure. Then looking, Jamie, again at Fulham during that 21-22 season, there hasn't been major changes to that squad. Of course, we know that Paulini's come in, who is a multi-million-pound player, a player that was heavily linked with Bayern Munich, probably more than heavily linked. He was very close to joining them. Mitrovic, we've mentioned already, was a cheat code, but ultimately they were in a position during that championship season where they were a Premier League level squad. And that means that they haven't had to do too much to the squad over the last couple of seasons. And whilst that's whilst not bringing in consistent Premier League level quality might concern some players, that fact that this squad has bedded in together for quite some time can only bode well for them.
Yeah, I think ironically it's potentially a blueprint that we're looking at in terms of they did a bit of a yo-yo for a few seasons and managed to build a squad that eventually stayed up in the Premier League and stayed up very easily. I think that last season what they did is they only bought a few that really added quality to their squad. I mean, Paulini, as you said there, was the one. I think they signed him from Lisbon for 30-40 million pounds. So they were the one. He was the one player that really, you think, you know what, we've got a proper defensive midfielder in to sort of run that midfield for us, and him alone with the quality that they brought forward with them from the Championship was definitely a mid-table Premier League side. So something that maybe Luton Town, if we go down and up, but then down, it's something that we could look at to over the time build a squad that will eventually stay up. And yeah, I think in terms of the squad this season, again, it's not really changed too much. You've still got like your Harrison Reeds, your Tom Kearneys, for example, in midfield. You've got Harry Wilson and Decordova Reed. You've still got like players dotted about, Robinson left back, Tete right back, who have all been in that squad for a few years now. And this season is, I think, what I alluded to just a minute ago, is that actually they're going through a bit of a transition now, where they've got Bassi at centre half, they've got Jimenez up top. They've got Sasha Lukic in midfield, so they're starting to move away from the Harrison Reeds and move away from the Mitros and the Diops at the back. So that hopefully is something that we can look at to take advantage of. Where actually they're going through a transitional period and that they're still going to be working towards the quality that they were last season, especially losing Mitro. Their forward line is still going to get to know each other. So that's something that I'm looking at that we can hopefully make the most of.
And sticking with you, Jamie, Stephen mentioned there, Adama Traore is a player that he is potentially worried about, somebody that could cause a threat. Which players do you have an eye on? Players that you want Rob Edwards to outline and make sure that they're not firing come Saturday?
I think Traore is a good shout as always. I think we all know the quality he has. I think I doubt his final third quality a little bit in terms of his final ball, and that hopefully will continue into this weekend. But yeah, he's absolutely rapid. But what I would say is, do Luton Town have the perfect mitigant to him and Alfie Doughty in terms of the pace that he has, right? And we've not seen that matchup before because Doughty wasn't playing for us when we played Traore last. So that would be an interesting matchup if Doughty gets the nod on the left. Elsewhere, I've always liked the look of whatever Reed and Harry Wilson. They've got a bit more quality. Okay, they're not as physical as Traore is, but they've got a lot more quality in the final third compared to what Traore has. So it's just all about trying to limit the space that they have, and then Jimenez in the middle up top. He was fantastic for Wolves. Question marks as to whether he's, I wouldn't say past it. I think past it's a bit of a tough word to use, but whether he's just losing it a little bit. So yeah, the forward line has plenty of experience at this level, but as have the forward lines that we played so far.
And then flipping the script, Stephen, we've seen a fair bit of Luton now. We've had 3 games in the Premier League. We've had a game in the Cup as well, where players who are more on the fringes of things got their opportunity. Where do you think our threats come from now? Which players do you think can give Fulham a difficult afternoon, considering what we've seen so far and what you expect to see from certain individuals moving forward?
I think Jamie said there, if Alfie Doughty gets the nod, he's going to be really important for us. I think the quality and the pace that he's going to bring, if he starts, is what we need. And I think that sort of threat is brilliant. But at the same time, like say Giles gets the nod, I think we saw that his numbers in the final third, like with crossing, especially at the byline and like when attacking, his crosses are being received well by the attackers. Like the crosses are being completed, and I think if that is the case, with either of those, if they're performing well, that's going to be brilliant for Eli and Morris, and we both know that they're brilliant in the air and brilliant with their feet. So if they're getting the right balls in, which they should be, that's going to be brilliant for us. But at the same time, if Alfie starts on the right, and we've seen him cut in a few times, and he's sort of, I think, seen him cut across the defence, like going through the thirds, cutting across the defence and creating things, either splitting it out wide or going straight through the middle. And I think it's just testament to Alfie. I think he's one of the main threats we've got at the moment. But at the same time, it'll be good to see how Lokonga does as well, and gives us something different in the midfield. And hopefully, Barkley's a little bit more bedded in. And say we've got both those players starting in midfield. We've got 2 Premier League quality midfielders, and that are ready for it. That are hopefully going to be creating a lot for us. So yeah, I think that's where our threats lie.
This game for me is where Morris really needs to show that he's right for this level. I think the centre half pairing that they could put out, whether it be a mixture of Reem or Diop or Bassi, I think they certainly can be got at. I think Bassi, I've liked him, but he's still a bit raw. I think I liked him at Rangers. He went to Ajax, didn't have too great a time, and I think sort of came back to the UK with a point to prove. But I think he will be fantastic. But I think he's still got a bit of he's got a few mistakes in him, let's say. And then Tim Ream, again, he's had a great career, but he's 35 now, or bordering 35, and again, he's got a mistake in him, and Morris and Eli Eli in particular, right, should certainly be able to get at Tim Ream. And Issa Diop, again, the same. He's a good centre half, but I think we can get at them. So if we can isolate Morris and Eli against their back two, and then occupy the fullbacks with support from our wing backs or the on rushing 8, or if 10, if we flip the midfield, I think the defence really can be got at, because you got fullbacks wise, you got Robinson, who's very attacking. So if Kabore or Doughty can get in behind him and support the forward line, there really is opportunity for us to actually stamp our authority on the game and send a bit of a message to the league. So I'm really hopeful for this weekend. And I think if we can score a few goals, or even if we can just score a couple or score one and win, just anything, just to get some points on the board, it's a really good opportunity for us at the weekend.
So it's now been coming up to 2 weeks since our last fixture. Rob Edwards would have learned a lot of lessons so far from what he's seen, from what he's seen of opposition, be adapting to Premier League football, and it's right that we've given him this time, and not given him this time as in we're thinking of sacking him, but given his time to really put his ideas across and start to test things. Do you think we're still in that period of time where he will be testing things out, or do you think he's got his tactics in order? He knows what he's doing and it'll just be slight tweaks to the system? Or do you think there could be wholesale changes at say, this game or a game in the future?
I mean, I'm at risk of plagiarising the Edwards script here, but the games so far have just been moments. You've got the Brighton and Chelsea games. In the end, the scoreline looks a bit more damaging than the game actually was, but it was just moments that killed us. And either way, regardless of whether it was moments or not, tactically, I thought we were absolutely fine. And ultimately, Brighton and Chelsea away had two fantastic teams, and who will both finish top 8 this season for sure. Then West Ham at home, for me, even more, it was just moments. You got Bowen at the back post header where Giles slept and Bartley didn't get out to Paqueta, and then a set piece, and that's all their 2 goals was. And other than that, they didn't really create too much. And I think both the chances created and the XG show that. So I think tactically there's not really too much to try out. Again, maybe does Edwards want to short the midfield and flip the triangle, as I said on the last pod? Maybe, but that's going to be a slight tweak. So yeah, I think in answer to your question, no, there might be a few partnerships to test. Maybe like a Lokonga and how he rotates with Nakamba or Barkley, for example. But there's not going to be anything massive that's going to need testing. I think Edwards has it locked down tactically. I think he's confident in what the team can do, and I hope that we showed it on Saturday. I think if we put in the same performance as we did against West Ham before the break against Fulham, I'll be surprised if we don't come away with at least a point.
And ultimately, when you sort of take a step back and look at our 3 performances combined, there has been progression in each game, and I think that's massive in determining how this season can go. Of course, the first game of the season, it could have been absolutely anything. It could have been an absolute horror show. We could have been really, really resilient against the Brighton team, who might not have been firing at that point. But then to go to Chelsea and up that level of performance, and then to host West Ham in our first Premier League game and give a really good account of ourselves. I think we're definitely heading in the right direction, and yeah, there's no need for those wholesale changes. It's just getting certain individuals up to speed with Premier League football, and I'm sure those points will start coming.
Yeah, and I think just to add on that just a little bit, I think now we're going to get into a good run of games without any breaks, or hopefully without any breaks for a good few weeks. So hopefully that's going to help us bed in as well, because obviously having the Burnley game called off and then having other breaks as well, it's just not helped. And the international break has not helped with getting into the swing of things, really. So I think now is kind of where it really matters. So, this is I'm really looking forward to this run of games, because it's going to be good to see how much we've learned from those games.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think you'll get more of an indication to where we're at. We've played 3 teams that I think we can all anticipate will finish in the top 10 or very, very close to being in that top 10. So how we do against a team like Fulham, a team like Everton coming up, a team like Wolves as well, I think that'll give us a real indication as to where we are currently now and what to expect as the season progresses. We're going to head into a short break, but when we're back, we'll go into some predictions and we'll also address the 3 polls of the week. We are back for the second part of today's episode, where we are previewing our next Premier League fixture, an away trip to Craven Cottage. Now, we put out 3 polls earlier, all about selection dilemmas that Rob Edwards might have. And the first one we tweeted out was, should Sambi Lokonga start on Saturday if he's fit? Of course, he signed on deadline day. He's been evidently working up his fitness, tactically adjusting to what will be a different style of football to what he's grown accustomed to. So, Jay, I'll come to you before I read the results of the poll. Would you be inclined to start Sambi Lokonga against Fulham?
Assuming he has done all right in training and he's not injured and he's fully fit and raring to go, absolutely. There's a reason you bring him in, because he's quality and he's comes in and he looks to start, right? So yeah, absolutely. I would be inclined, given that Paolini is one of their biggest threats. He's gonna, on his day, boss that midfield. So we're gonna need to be able to have a midfield that can fight against him and try and boss back, right? So I think for me, Lokonga and Nakamba is that double pivot. I would certainly flip the midfield where you have 2 holders, and then beyond, I don't know, Chong or Barkley, but yeah, I think Lokonga and Nakamba starting next to each other is going to probably be what I would do.
Stephen, are you on the same page? Would you have Lokonga next to Nakamba starting, or do you think the team as it is with the 2 8s is probably better for this game?
I'd say it's worth giving Lokonga a start, because they're going to know what they've learned in the first few fixtures, and I think having someone with that sort of quality to come on straight away is going to be better for us than going with what we've done already, because I think we've kind of learned that there's just a little bit of I don't know what it is. It's almost a bit of a not grogginess, not. It's just teeny bit slow. It feels like the team hasn't fully got used to the speed of it yet, and I think Lokonga would be up to speed with it. It seems like when Barkley's receiving the ball, he's just a bit slow, but obviously you want him to be the sort of person that's ready for it and up to speed with the league. But I think what I've seen personally is that people just seem to be a teeny bit off the pace, just a teeny bit thinking they've still got the same amount of time as what they would have in the Championship. So I think having someone like Lokonga going into that midfield, being able to sort of pivot or turn and play the ball, not get caught out in possession, is going to be beneficial to us, especially away from home. And so I would like to see him start.
It's fair to say you both are in line with what the Luton supporters have opted for. 84% were at yes, 16% at no. And yeah, I'd like to see Lokonga. Again, I wouldn't be too surprised if it is more of the same, if it is Nakamba and the 2 8s, because I think, as mentioned before, there has been progress, but ultimately Lokonga, being alone, he's come to play games. He offers that tactical flexibility. So why not give him a go?
What is a massive benefit is that they've had the 2 weeks, right? They brought him in and he's just been able to train with the squad for 2 weeks. It's not like he's been thrown in, brought in on a Thursday, play on the Saturday. He's had a good amount of time to bed in, and that's massive. You saw what happened when Edwards came in over Christmas last year and had the time to work with the group. So I think on the training pitches where Edwards really does shine and manages to get instructions and fitness and just everything else into the players. So yeah, I think having the 2 weeks is massive.
Let's go on to poll 2. Stephen, I'll come to you with this one. Should Rob Edwards rotate his striking options? And Elijah Adebayo and Colton Morris have started all 3 league games so far. We've got flexibility within the squad to play with a front 3 with wingers. Jacob Brown obviously can operate on the wing, or Bene can play on the wing. You can put Tahith Chong, on the wing as well. We've certainly got the capacity to do that, whilst Jacob Brown has impressed from a central position. So would you say there is a good chance that Rob Edwards will rotate his striking options for this game, or do you think it will be the trusted duo of Eli and Colton Morris?
I think it'll be the trusted duo. I think you got to look at it from 2 ways. It's like if you've got 2 strikers on the pitch, you've got, you could argue you've got more chance of scoring because they're going to be better players in the positions to score. But at the same time, I think we've found that both of them have just been a little bit, again, just off the pace for this league. And then at the same time, I think what I found, or what I've seen, is that a lot of the times they're not in the box or in the right position. So you put a case forward to have one striker who's, told to stay in the middle, stay in the positions to get into goal scoring positions, rather than roaming like Morris does. Adebayo comes out and receives the ball. So I guess there is argument to mix it up and have a more creative outlet on the wings. And I think I would like to see a little bit of experimenting with that. But I can see sticking with the trusted duo and hoping that, or thinking that it's going to work out. Finally, hopefully we're going to find the formula to get them both firing on all cylinders.
And Jamie, Eli and Colton for you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been I wouldn't say a lot of talk, but there's been enough talk about both Morris and Eli individually. Some thinking that they've been absolutely fine, some maybe not so much. But for me, that neither of them have given me any reason to doubt them or think that they won't impact this level. But let's be frank, right? They've come up against some really good centre half so far this season. You got Lewis Dunk, who just played 90 minutes last night for England against Scotland. He showed how good he was last night. Everyone raving about him. So, of course, it was tough for Morris and Eli against Lewis Dunk. You've got Thiago Silva, veteran legend of the game for Chelsea, with 2 young options either side of him who themselves have a lot of promise about them. And then Zuma and Agurd, who aren't quite the level of Dunk or Silva, but still very good centre halves, and you have to praise them how they dealt with them at the weekend, or dealt with them before the break. Whereas, like I said, I think the story's a bit different on the weekend with Diop or Ream or Bassi. I think they can be got at, and I think sticking with that trusty pair, and as you put it, they showed last season what they're capable of, and I think they've shown glimpses so far this season against tough opposition. So yeah, absolutely deserve to get a chance against Fulham and hopefully show the league what they're all about.
I'm gonna opt for no here, and it's not a case of dropping either Eli or Morris. It's more of a reward for Brown for how brilliant I believe he's been since he's come in, and I think that also has to marry up with the kind of game I expect it to be. I think that we can have joy in behind, and I think Brown is a player that will exploit spaces in behind, especially if he's coming up against a centre back, like Tim Ream, not the most mobile defender in the world, and We've seen Brown has electric pace to get him beyond. We've also seen that he can hold the ball up. He's a striker with many talents. But I think Brown is deserving of a start. Again, that's not a slight. That's not a swipe or anything at Eli, who I probably would see drop to the bench because of the addition of Brown. But again, I can see Adebayo and Morris. I think it's very, very close for me. It's very, very close. And whilst Adebayo and Morris, I think you know what you're going to get from in terms of industry and in terms of out of possession shape. I think that's something that might give them the edge for this game. But I think in terms of what we can do in possession and stretching the Fulham backline, which we may need to do in a game like this, I think Brown will be the answer.
Why did you go Brown over someone like an Ogbene who just put 2 excellent performances in back-to-back against France and Holland? Was that of interest?
Yeah, I think that's a very fair comment. And I think Ogbene, again, he's a very similar striker to Brown, that he can stretch that back line and will be thriving. He'll have a lot of confidence behind him after 2 very impressive performances. But I think from what Brown has done so far and the other side to his game, which is the physicality, the athlete he is and holding the ball up, I think he suits different styles of games, if that makes sense. Whereas Ogbene, I think he's somebody that will get at defenders and he'll exploit that space in behind. I think Brown is a little bit more well-rounded than Ogbene at this point, but I think both will get their opportunities very, very soon. We'll go to the breakdown of the second poll. We had 65% at yes, they do want to see Rob Edwards rotate their striking options. As Jamie alluded to there, Ogbene having a very successful international period could pave the way for that, whilst Brown has been knocking on the door ever since he arrived. So, yeah, 65% at yes, 35% at no. We'll conclude the polls with the third and final one, and that is who should be the starting wing backs for Fulham away. And this read out as 12% wanted Kabore right wing back and Giles left wing back. There were 59% of you that went for Kabore at right wing back and Alfie Doughty at left wing back. And finally, there was 28% that had Doughty at right wing back and Giles at left wing back, and other was at 1%. I think that probably caters towards Ogbene potentially playing at right wing back. I don't think there's any other formulas that would work that fans would opt for. What are your thoughts, Mr. Stephen Day?
I think I would like to see Doughty on the left and Kabore on the right. I think that would be my go-to, just because we've seen Giles. I think I've alluded to that he can be a bit of a liability going back. I think I might have mentioned that Bell and him, especially defending corners or defending crosses, just doesn't seem to be working out with, conceded headers to smaller players in the teams we've come up against. And I think it would be good to see what else we can do, whether it's, Doughty on the left there or maybe a different left-sided centre-half. But yeah, I think I would like to see Doughty starting on the left and Kabore on the right, because I think Kabore, especially against Brighton, he looked brilliant, and that we've all seen his quality, and it's just something that I'd really want to see, because I think forwards and backwards it's going to be better for us than what we've seen so far.
That's fair enough. Jamie, are you opting for the same combination?
Yeah, I think when you've got a player like Traore in the picture coming up against this weekend, you need to pick the options that are going to be able to handle him best. And I think Doughty against Traore is the matchup that you need to go with. I think Giles, again, has been a lot of talk of how has he been, good or bad. Certain areas have been good, certain areas he hasn't been. But I think fundamentally, forget the start that Giles has had. I think Doughty is the wing back to try and mitigate the damage that Traore could cause in terms of getting out to crosses, in terms of just keeping up with him. Like ultimately, Doughty's recovery runs last season at the times were just ridiculous, and I think if Traore does get in behind, he's the one player that on the pitch could get back in time, and then Kabore the other side as well. I think again Robertson at left back, he does tend to leave some space in behind him at times. So if we can get Kabore in behind, that could cause some damage as well. So looking purely at the matchups, yeah, I think it's got to be Doughty left wing back and Kabore on the right.
That was the combination that was the most selected, just running through them. Again, it was 12% that had Kabore and Giles, the combination that started the season. There was 59% that were in favour of Doughty at left wing back and Kabore at right wing back, and there was 28% that were Doughty right wing back and Giles left wing back. Let's go on to the full starting 11 prediction. We've basically gone through the main talking points. We've gone through the main selection dilemmas, but of course, on any given game week, there are selection dilemmas all across the week, all across the squad. Sorry, and that is to be expected when you've recruited as well as we've done. So, Jamie, take it away with your starting 11 for Fulham away.
So in goal, no surprise, TK, but Thomas Kaminski. Yeah, I mean, we've got Donovan back, so Kabore right, Doughty left. For me, surprisingly, I think given Amari Bell played 90 minutes in Jamaica last night, international break, I wouldn't be surprised if the back three is Lockyer, Anderson and Burke. So Lockyer on the left, Burke on the right, Anderson in the middle. I think that wouldn't surprise me at all. I think Bell, either way, Bell needs a rest. He's been non-stop since summer 22, right? He's played all the way through last season, played all the way through the Gold Cup with Jamaica, and now international break and Premier League. It's just been absolutely relentless for him. So I think he's been a bit off the pace, but that's no slight on him. That's just purely just the number of games that he's played. And yeah, I think if we can give him a break, that would be welcome for him. Midfield three, yeah, the two sitters in Lokonga and the Nakamba. And then one number 10 in behind Morris and Eli. And this is probably, for me, the toughest decision of the team is on the assumption you put Lokonga in, who do you drop? Is it Barkley or Chong? And I think just purely for creativity, I'm going to go with Chong. I think he's a player that excites me. I think the games that I've seen this season, sometimes the stats may not have, again, married up with what I've seen, but when he's on the ball, you always think he can do something special. And I think the 3 games I've seen in the league so far, every team we played against has had that something special, be it Paqueta for West Ham or Sterling for Chelsea, for example. I think Mitoma for Brighton, they've all had that bit of magic that can win a game. And I feel like, although he's not shown it fully yet, I feel like Chong can and does have that. So that's why I go Chong over Barkley.
Stephen, is yours similar? Any big changes to that?
Yeah, similar. I'd go with obviously what I've said with the wing backs, Kaminski. I think as Jamie said, like Bell does need a rest, and I think I worry about his defensive ability sometimes. And so I think back three, I'd obviously Locks in the middle, Burke on the right, and probably Ted Mengi on the as left centre back, and then midfield. I don't think I'd go any different really. Jamie's made some good points, and I think Barkley, I've mentioned, these just sometimes can be a little bit naive, a little bit slow, and I think Chong has just got a little bit more sharpness about him. I don't know if it's Barkley's quality. Maybe he's not actually too great, but at the same time, I feel like it's just he's got to learn, and it could be confidence. and I think maybe just giving him a bit of competition, which obviously he knows is there, is going to be good for him. And then up top, Adebayo and Morris, obviously.
Mine is very similar to Jamie's, bar two. Of course, I've already mentioned that I'd like to see Brown start, and that would be in the place of Adebayo. And then the second one is the other really tough decision that Jamie had in Barkley or Chung. I think just edging it the other way, it will be Barkley. Let's go into some score predictions. And Jamie Castle, as we mention all the time, has the tag of Mr. Optimistic. Is it as optimistic this time round?
Yeah, I have to admit, seeing an amazing 3-1 win in Glasgow last night, the optimism's through the roof right now. Seeing the performance that the England boys put in at Hampden Park, so I'm going to have the faith that level of performance carries through into Luton this weekend. I'm going to go a 2-1 Luton win.
Stephen, are you 3 points? Are you going for 3 points as well?
We've got to run it back and go with a 1-0 Luton win. It's not Yorkshire, but we've got to have a 1-0 Luton win to kickstart the good that is coming.
And it wouldn't be an Oak Road Hatter podcast without me sitting on the fence. I'm going to go for the famous 1-0.
Billy 1-0 money. Billy 1-0 money. Just because you've got 2 L's in, like 2 L's twice in your name, you sort of it's Billy 1-1, isn't it? Basically, it's like, come on.
Well, that is all for today. A big thank you to the pair of you for joining me. A big thank you to everybody listening and watching the Oak Road Hatter podcast. We're going to be back on Monday to review this game and to really digest what we've seen. Hopefully we're speaking about 3 points, or a point in my case. But until next time, it is goodbye from us.